Going ahead. All right. Welcome everyone to our last Tour Tuesday of the school year. I cannot believe it. My name is Lizzie Gray and I'm a project coordinator for Connected Lane County. As always, I will be your host. For today's event, we are joined by Emily Shelton from Bring Recycling. Thanks for being here, Emily. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks for having me. My name is Emily, and I am the Director of Education and Outreach at Bring Recycling. And so in normal times, one of my primary duties is to take students and community groups on tours of Bring. So I'm excited to speak with you all today.
Very cool. We're happy to have you. Before we start, to the folks on the call tuning in live, just know that by now you should have watched the pre-recorded tour that Jenna sent you Thursday and then again this week. If you haven't, make sure you do so after the Q&A to help kind of put context to the things that we're talking about, but make sure that you fire away with your questions still. And as always, while you tune in live, we can't see or hear you, but you can interact with us through the chat feature, the Q&A feature, or you can raise your hand and ask your question aloud so we can unmute you. All right, I will get us started. Emily, how did you wind up at Bring? Can you describe to us your career path that's landed you here?
Sure, it's a pretty short story. I went from college on the East Coast. I moved to Eugene in 2011. And when I came here, I was new to the area and I wasn't really sure what I was going to be doing because I was, very new to the region. So I found an entry-level job at the what used to be called the Science Factory Children's Museum. It's now called the Eugene Science Center. And I worked at their front desk doing visitor services. Mm-hmm. And through that experience, I was, closely immersed in science education for youth. Mm-hmm. And so I got to see educators at the museum teaching students about science and technology. And I sort of saw how they would do that programming. And so that is what then landed me here at Bring, okay, doing K through 12 education programs for students that specifically focuses on waste and waste prevention. So, and in college, I also sort of focused my degree on nonprofit work. So I chose a very specific track to work on nonprofits. I did a little internship when I was in college working at an arts council. So this is my third nonprofit organization.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Do you think you'll stick with a nonprofit throughout your career?
Possibly. It's very possible. It is a sort of specific set of skills and understanding that when you're at a nonprofit, you might be hired for one thing, but get pulled into, as they say, wearing many hats. So not only, I was hired to teach students, but I also do other things for Bring, like social media, communications. Okay. And I am sort of the public facing spokesperson for the organization.
Okay. And tour host.
Yes, exactly.
So you said that working in nonprofits requires a certain set of skills. What professional skills would you say are most utilized or someone should have if they want to work in the nonprofit world?
There's a lot of overlap with, for-profit as well, or government work, but, collaboration is a big part of that. Just trying to find partnerships with other businesses and groups where you can pull together sort of strategic programs. I would say, a nonprofit, there is a sort of a misconception that nonprofits don't make any money and they don't have any money, but it just depends on the organization. But it's always good to be able to manage a budget and look at, where your sort of revenue streams are coming in and how you can best maximize that for, future programs.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned, the need to wear multiple hats or to perform different duties than maybe that you were hired on to do. So I would say like flexibility and
Yes.
adaptability are
Yes,
big ones.
anytime flexibility, which is, it's nice because at Bring we kind of say that we all, even though we run different departments or different programs, we all know what each other is doing,
Yeah,
so that we can, um, we can sort of communicate that to other people outside of our organization,
yeah,
but just be able to best support our coworkers in what they're doing, and then to be able to step in if
yeah.
needed and help out.
Absolutely. A big part of this work that we do, because we're also a nonprofit, is storytelling. And you have to be able to tell your story well so that people want to invest in the work that you're doing to keep the
Yes.
doors open. So, yeah,
Yeah.
storytelling, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit more about your schooling. You said you went to school on the East Coast.
Yes.
Do you want to call out specifically a state?
Yes. I grew up in North Carolina. I went
Right.
to a small, uh, it's a state school called Appalachian State University.
Okay.
And I just received a bachelor's in communications
Okay.
and sort of focused on public relations when I eventually got more specific in what I wanted to do. And through the public relations track, I chose a nonprofit track.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you draw on what you learned in college often?
Yes, absolutely. And, yeah, public relations is important for no matter what industry you are
Mhm.
in. And likely every company or nonprofit is going to look for someone who can be a spokesperson, to distribute, your message, tell your story, like you were saying.
Yeah.
It's just one of those roles that likely most companies need.
Okay. Okay. So one thing I thought I might hear when you talked about your degree or your schooling was something sciency.
Oh, I know.
Is that just like was that just something you liked in high school, or did you just find a passion for it after school?
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, no, I did not do get my education in a
Hmm.
science. I was always passionate about sort of conserving resources. And I grew up in a family that did recycle, and
Ask you.
it was maybe where I grew up not as common.
Mhm.
It's a core value here in Oregon. A lot of families value recycling as a environmentally friendly practice.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that really where I grew up, but I did have a family that was conscious of it and aware, and so I grew up doing it. But no, I didn't get my education in science. I learned all about my industry in a crash course that is offered. I mean,
Wow.
it was like my job was there was a learning curve. Like it took a
Mhm.
while for me to really um, understand it completely, but I immediately when I started, I took a course called Master Recyclers, which is which is a course that actually is available um, to anyone here in Lane County. It's offered by Lane County Waste Management. They do a spring and a fall class, and right now it's probably online.
Mhm.
But you learn all about the local waste management industry, what happens to our recycling, why it's important, and a lot of the science that it's involved. It's a very low cost program as well.
Okay.
But then through that, and then just through sort of mentoring within my organization, I was able to step into the role.
That's great.
And yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, teaching
Yeah.
is kind of like public relations,
Yes.
because there's a message that I want the students to get, and
Mhm.
what my lessons typically focus on are, why it's important to reduce our waste or reduce our consumption, and to do things like recycling, composting, and how that's related to our waste management system and even our store here at Bring and why we sell reusable materials. So I'm kind of like being a PR specialist for the industry.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So did you do okay in science classes in high school?
Yeah, I did okay. I mean,
Yeah.
not great. I wasn't an all-star in
Yeah.
science, but yeah, of course I would say I was a intermediate level.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. So a lot of the students tuning into this live or who will watch it later are potentially applying for some of their first jobs. And so I just think it's important to point out that one of the first jobs that you had over here in Eugene was at a science factory, and you didn't have like a degree in science or a strong passion for science, and it still worked out.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. What would you accredit that to? Like, was that your drive?
I would credit, yeah, I mean, I definitely had motivation
Mhm.
to get a job. I loved the idea of working with kids.
Mhm.
And I would also credit that to just great mentors within my organizations who just really believed that, you know, I could rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Basically, like, here's the job, here's the role, here
Mhm.
are your duties, and you know, you can do
Go for it.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds like you've worked at some pretty supportive places.
Yes,
Yeah, that's great. I was
absolutely.
gonna ask you too, when you talked about being from the East Coast, I think we totally take our recycling, just like environment for granted in Oregon and
Yes.
especially in Eugene.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've learned from friends and from family members in different states that that's absolutely not the norm everywhere, and it just feels so foreign to me to think about that.
Right. It's so true. Yeah. We Oregon has always been a pioneer in
Mhm.
sort of that space of recycling and reusing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's in the name of the organization, but for any students who are tuning in who might not have seen the tour just yet, what is Bring? Can you tell us just a tiny bit about what you all do?
Yes. So we have recycling in our name because we've been around for 50 years, a really long time. And in the beginning, when we were originally established, we did some recycling. We helped get specific materials to factories that would remanufacture materials like glass and newspaper. But eventually, the government stepped in, the city and the county, and they said, we're going to take care of like recycling. We're going to make it, and even the state, we're going to make it available to all of the residents across the state. So we're going to pick it up from your homes and your apartments. So we didn't really need to do that anymore. And so our business model evolved, and we are now a place where you can we have a store where you can buy reusable building materials. So we take donations of building materials from residents and businesses who have, just stuff that they don't need or want anymore. And it's stuff like windows and doors, lumber, fixtures, lighting. It's all the sorts of things that you would find at a home improvement store like Jerry's.
Yeah.
But it's been used once or twice and then donated to us, and we resell it
Great. At a discounted price. So
at a
folks.
discounted price. Yeah, it's very affordable. And in addition to that, we are, at the very core of our business, we are an educational organization. So we, through the money that we make in our store, we reinvest that back into community education programs like, for our K-12 students in Lane County, for our business community in Lane County. So we're just, educating, spreading the word about waste and waste prevention, and why that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So your building itself was really interesting to me when we took that tour, and then all of the little art installations you have around. So can you talk about how you incorporated some of those core values when constructing your building or remodeling your building? I can't remember.
Yes, we did a little bit of both actually. So we originally, like, if you're from here and you grew up here and your parents grew up here, your grandparents, they may remember our former facility, which was just it was on CV Loop Road, like right on the way to Mount Pisgah. And we were there for a couple decades, and they moved to our current site in 2008. And when we came here, there were a couple buildings that were used for other types of businesses. So we did remodel a few of those buildings to create our office space and the front of our store. And when you remodel, instead of demolish and build new, you're able to use like the existing structures, and so you're basically saving those materials from being thrown away. And we were able to incorporate, doors and windows and furniture and all sorts of things that were used.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to practice what we preach and say, like, you can take this existing structure. We don't need to like level it to the ground and start over. Let's use what's here. So we did that in a few buildings. And then we also, all of the sort of like the new buildings that we did construct in the back, because we needed more warehouse space. Those buildings were built from steel that was recycled.
Wow.
And steel, and especially, is like pretty much infinitely recyclable. It does not lose its integrity. So you can, if we were ever to move away from this site, we could potentially have those buildings recycled if we wanted to. Yeah.
Holy smokes. Any chance that steel came from Far West steel?
Yeah, it is very possible. I don't know exactly, but yeah. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, they were. I just thought it was kind of beautiful if they were, because we started our tour series this spring with Far West, and now we're ending with potentially some recycled Far West goods.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
We have a couple student questions here. Brianna asks, does BRING stand for anything? Is it an acronym?
It is, yes. And it goes back to sort of the history of the organization. So it stands for Begin Recycling in Neighborhood Groups.
Okay.
So that's what our founders would do. They would go around to our different neighborhoods with the BRING truck and pick up the recyclables from residents in the neighborhoods. We also had kiosks all over the city, like at different parks and other places that people, like, we had one in Alton Baker, and then other places where you could bring the recyclables to the BRING people, and they would take it, they would load it or bale it and take it to, sometimes they would even have to drive it to like Portland, so that it would be recycled. But this was before there were recycling companies that would come pick up your recycling from your house, from the curb, or from your apartment. So this was long before that.
Yeah.
They had to have a community effort to collect those items.
Yeah, and I think about it now, and it's so convenient to recycle that it's almost like a cardinal sin not to. And I just think about how much effort and passion folks had to have had for recycling and for our earth, to go to the lengths that they did to recycle.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Gracie wants to know what other kinds of materials do you recycle? So we heard steel, windows, lumber. I mean, I saw doors. We've talked about some lawnmowers.
Yeah, we have like sort of sort of the same departments that you would think about at a typical home improvement store. So we have furniture, we have tools, we even have like hardware. So we have bins and bins of hardware like nails and screws and hinges for a door and doorknobs.
Yeah.
So everything that you could sort of find at like a regular home improvement store, we most likely will have something. We just don't have consistent inventory all the time.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I love this question. What's the coolest / most interesting thing you've seen donated to Burn?
That is a good question. Well, currently we have a sink that is from, I am going to forget the company, but it is a antique sink that was from a company that makes sinks and bathtubs that are in places like the Palace of Versailles and the White House.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, so it's like this pedestal sink and it's very unassuming, but it is from this certain porcelain company that makes these very high-end sinks and bathtubs and things.
Holy smokes.
So it's actually on sale for quite a bit.
That's what I'm going to ask you.
Probably a little bit more. It's definitely more expensive than like most of the stuff that you would find here, but it's still heavily discounted.
Yeah.
And it takes a very specific person to want that item. So like a collector, someone who's doing some sort of like historical renovation, like preserving a historical building that they might want something that's sort of time, of the time that the building was built.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what can we ask? What's the price tag?
Oh yeah. That's a good question. I think it's like probably around like $1,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. So someone really needs to want that sink.
Right. Yes.
Well, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Did the person who dropped it off give you the history of it, or did your buyer look into what kind of sink it was?
Yeah. So oftentimes the donors will give us some context for, sort of rare, unique things like that. Mm-hmm. We don't buy anything. It's all donated for free.
Yeah.
And we, our staff that takes the donations, they do a ton of research on items all the time that come in. They want to know how to price it in a way that's going to, give the customer a discount, but also reflects its value. So, our prices also depend on like demand for an item. Something that we look at the condition of the item. We look at where it came from, if it's like a brand name, and all of those things sort of factor into what price we put on it.
What do you call those people? I call them buyers, which is not correct.
Yeah, we call them our receiving staff. We have a receiving manager. He looks at eBay and Craigslist and St. Vinny's, and he kind of compares all of these prices to make sure that they're competitive, but also we really want to give our customer a discount.
Definitely. And are prices negotiable? Is it something where someone comes to the register and is like a garage sale?
Yeah, no, they're not negotiable. However, we do have days of the week where certain people can get discounts. So we have a seniors day, we have a student day.
Cool.
We have, so like if you have a high school or a college ID, you can get a discount on student day.
What day is that?
I don't have the days memorized.
Oh, okay.
You can look on our website.
Okay, but it's not like every Tuesday. It's like March 17th.
No, it is. It's every week.
Wow.
On that day of the week. Yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
Okay, everybody go look at their website and figure it out.
And we do like Oregon Trail Card Day. Mm-hmm. We do seniors and veterans.
That's great. And is that discount like 5%?
I think it's 15.
Wow.
Or 20. Mm-hmm.
That's great. So if any students are out there working on a project, or you want to like build yourself a desk or do something,
Exactly.
make sure you go on student day. That's
Yes.
great. There's a question here from Olivia, and I think Olivia might have tuned in just a tiny bit late, but she's asking about living in a city where there aren't even options to recycle without driving to a recycling plant, and how different is Oregon from other states in terms of recycling. And I think we know we're one of the best.
Yeah, we are absolutely. I think there different states approach sort of materials management differently. For example, like we are recycling in Eugene. If you live in Eugene, Springfield, anywhere in Lane County, it's collected and it's actually put on a truck and sent to a factory in Vancouver, Washington. So it's just right outside of Portland. And at that facility, it gets sorted. So, we put all of our stuff into one bin together, all of the aluminum cans and the paper and the cardboard and all that gets commingled together, but it has to get sorted in order to be recycled. And so, that doesn't happen here. It has to go to, it drives like 2.5 hours north. And then some places in other states, that distance may be further, it may be shorter. They might not have facilities that are in a distance that would make it even economical for them to ship it. And so that's where you're going to run into to places where recycling is not as easily accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think in some communities, and I don't believe this is statewide, but in some particularly affluent cities, you commingle all of your recycling with your trash, and there are workers who separate your recycling from your trash.
It's true. Yeah. In California, you find a lot of what we call wet MRFs. So like that facility I was talking about that's in Vancouver, we call that a MRF, and it's a materials recovery facility. Okay. And so there's like these machines that use like magnets and blowers and spinny things and conveyor belts, and that it's very sophisticated machinery, but it's able to sort it into the different materials. And so like what you're describing, people can even put their trash and their recycling together, and those machines are able to sort the trash separately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Someone had to come up with all of those machines.
Yeah.
That's another cool career path.
Right. Folks, well, and we have a company in Eugene that manufactures the machines that are used at those facilities, and I'm going to forget the name of it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Bulk handling
systems. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're part of ours too.
Those are like world-renowned machines.
Yes, absolutely. Every time we explore the local manufacturing sector, I'm blown away at how many world-renowned companies are located in Lane County. It's awesome.
Yeah, like youve.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem.
It's wild.
Awesome. So question about what high schoolers could do right now to prepare for a job. And I kind of want to like separate this out into two buckets. So like maybe a job in philanthropy and nonprofit work, or a job in like, I don't know if we would call this like natural resource waste management. Mm-hmm. So what could students do to prepare?
Yeah, I would say, so for the nonprofit side of things, I would, there's so many different types of nonprofits that do all sorts of work from, we're an environmental organization. There's nonprofits that do work for children and for people experiencing homelessness and for, cats and dogs. Mm-hmm. So it's important to know what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So you might be able to figure that out through just volunteering. Mm-hmm. Going to a few of these organizations and spending, and it doesn't have to be like an ongoing thing, but just a day,
deal.
1 or 2 days a year, three, maybe a handful of days a year, you kind of offer your assistance to one of these organizations and figure out what you like to do and what you're, and then they may even have opportunities for you to work in the office and stuff like that. So volunteering, definitely. And just, sort of meeting people out there. I would say on the waste management side of things, and manufacturing, I know that there are classes that teach some like basic level skills in manufacturing. One thing I was going to bring up, which we're doing now, I don't know if it was on the tour, but we've just renovated our workshop, and we've just bought some new machines, and we're going to actually build new products out of the materials that we receive here, into like new made products.
That's
so
awesome.
We're taking like, an old table that may have like some broken legs, and we're able to like fix it and put like a cool new top on it or something like that, and sell it. So, shop skills.
Yeah.
And then for the waste management stuff, I think probably some, if you wanted to look more deeply into doing some sciences, that's definitely helpful.
Yeah.
The resource side of things is really important. There's so many good jobs that are related to what we do that are like with the city of Eugene, Lane County, and Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. So science is great.
Great. I like it.
Yeah.
If I was a student and I wanted to job shadow at Bring, so we've heard about receivers, but what other types of jobs could I see?
Yes. So you could see, up in our office, you could see our managers, our directors. We have our office manager who just, runs everything in the office, makes sure everyone has what they need to do their work. And so then our directors of our different programs are all separate positions. And then we have managers in the store that help all of our, we have employees who do like, of course, like inventory and stocking and pricing for the store. And then we have the people who, a couple key managers who oversee those folks. We have a volunteer coordinator.
Okay.
So she works with, high school, college volunteers, as well as like businesses who have volunteer days, and even for our new workshop, our new like production line, we're going to have volunteers come in there. And then we have like people like Kevin, who is sort of running the workshop, and he's coming up with production schedules and creating sort of these like recipes for the products and the blueprints, if you will, like what we're going to make and how many we're going to make and when we're going to do it. So there's a wide variety here of jobs and positions, everything from like, desk-based jobs to just working with your hands all day.
Yeah, absolutely. So where would I learn about any job openings that you might have?
We always post job openings on our website as well as social media. So we want to get it out to the community far and wide when we do have job openings. Yeah. And so it's always, great if you follow us on social, you'll be one of the first people to know about anything that we're doing.
That's great. So outside of working potentially on this new production line, how else do you put volunteers to work?
Yeah, well, we have a really cool site here where we actually have like a large garden area where we like to host events, or we like folks to be able to sort of enjoy the garden. So we do things like, garden cleanup days. we do just site improvements, so painting or moving things around. We also have needs for volunteers for around events. So, eventually we're going to get back to hosting, in-person events. And we do it's usually in the like early fall around Labor Day, we do an event, a really cool event called the Home and Garden Tour.
Oh.
And so it's like different homes and gardens around town where you can see like green building, like new architecture. And then sometimes it's like a house that's got like everything is reused, and a lot of it has come from Bring. And so it's really cool. So we need a small army of volunteers for that. And that's like talking to people and taking tickets and just enjoying the sunshine. So yeah.
Sounds so nice. Just a hint of normalcy. That sounds awesome.
It'll come back.
It totally will. So as a director, do you participate in hiring ever?
I do.
Yeah. You do. Okay. So like I said, a lot of these students might be applying for their first job, their second job, or maybe like their career goal job. In tomorrow's webinar, every Tuesday is followed by a working Wednesday, which are webinars on career readiness skills and how to develop them. Tomorrow's is on the job application process. So from like A to Z, you're applying for a job. What can you expect and how can you put your best self forward? What do you personally look for in an applicant, kind of regardless of role? Like, what are you looking to see on an application or a resume?
Regardless of role. Well, I'm always looking for, the passion. I want to know what that person is interested in. And I want to know what that person wants to, like, where they see themselves in beyond just that job, like in 2 years or 5 years. Sometimes, like, do you have sort of like a short-term sort of plan? Not everybody knows, but it's just something you could think about. And someone, who's hiring you may ask you that question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah.
I also look for, I want to know if that person has done any like sort of research about our organization. I want to know if, like, did they do their homework? Do they know what they're getting themselves into?
Totally. We've heard that across the board from different professionals, just saying that one of the first questions that they ask in an interview is, tell us what you know about our company.
Right.
And if an applicant doesn't have an answer, then it's a pretty easy no.
Right. Yeah. And, and if they don't know exactly, but they think they know, to say, like, this is what I understand, but I would love for you to tell me more so I have a better understanding.
Yeah, that's a great way to weave in a question too.
Yeah.
Do you expect applicants to do any kind of follow-up?
We do not necessarily. I think the most important thing about that process would just be at the end of an interview, whether it's in person, on Zoom, or on a phone call, is just to show that you're interested. You can always just say at the end of the interview, when can I expect to hear from you, basically. And I don't mind when someone asks me that question, but we try to give our applicants a good expectation of when we will get back to them. We don't like to leave people hanging.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think if you were unsure of when they were going to get back to you, you could absolutely follow up, and say, I enjoyed our interview. I enjoyed chatting with you. I'd love to, something like that.
Yeah. When are you going to talk to me next?
Yeah. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Follow-up is good.
Yep, I would agree. Has COVID affected your hiring process? Have you needed to hire anyone through COVID?
We have done one hiring round through COVID. It was for a specific position in our office, and we did it on Zoom. Mm-hmm. And so we just have adapted to the times, and and I would be sure to assume that a lot of companies are doing the same.
Yeah.
But we also, I guess this is worth mentioning, for some of our store positions, we use a temp agency.
Got it.
A local temp agency where like if we have someone who comes in who is interested in working in the store, we will send them to the temp agency, and they will get all set up with them. And then the temp agency will send them to us on the days that we need to fill in
Got it.
some people. And then what happens is the temps that are coming back over and over and over again, they get really familiar with us, and we request them specifically to come.
Got it.
And we want them, and then after that, it just depends on where we're at, but a lot of times we've then hired those temps on permanently.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah.
What's the and we've heard this before especially from manufacturers who are trying to fill some of their entry-level positions. What's the incentive as an organization or a business to go through a temp agency?
Well, I think it is a couple of things. One is just knowing if that person's a good fit. It's a lot of times companies will hire on folks for like a what do they call it? Like not a temporary, but like sort of a probationary period. It's like a trial period, I guess.
Yeah.
So they'll say, we're going to hire you for 3 months. If everything goes well, we're going to, keep you on, or maybe it'll be like 6 months. And then once you hit that 6-month mark, now we're going to give you benefits.
Got it.
It's like, I think that's partially why we do that. We want to know if someone's going to be a good fit long-term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. I just feel like I grew up, I have no idea why I have this, but I didn't always have the like most positive connotation when it came to temp agencies, but the more I've learned about them and the more I've worked with folks that have been brought on through temp agencies, it just seems like they're filling a need to connect employees and employers. So
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it's like for those who are willing to go that route, for employees who are willing to do that, it also is a good way of getting a taste of like a couple different workplaces, and and saying like, and being able to decide for yourself, like, I tried it out for a week and it was cool and I got paid, but like I don't really want to keep doing that.
Totally. And you're not letting any like employer down because there's someone else who might want that work.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a nice way to kind of test a few different industries.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just put out a last call to students. I'm going to ask my last question, so if you can type it in the time that we're done answering this question, then we can ask it. If not, you're going to have to hold off for now. But Emily, what's the best part about working at Bring?
There's so many good things. Let's see. I think the best part is really serving the community. Probably for me, that's number one. We are able to serve the community, provide some really great materials, of course, through our store, but other resources as well. And the second best thing would be just the people that I work with. I do love, the folks that I come to work with each day. Yeah.
And too, working in like a smaller organization and especially nonprofit, these people share your passions. And so folks are working in that job because they want to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. There's not a lot of turnover here.
That's a good sign. That's a great thing. That's awesome.
And we like to, even my executive director will say that she considers Bring a stepping stone for like a launch pad for employees to go on to something bigger and better.
Yeah.
So she wants that for everyone. And you can get some really good skills here, and you can go on to a career maybe with the city or the county or the DEQ, like I was talking about, where you make even more money and get even better benefits, or to work in our workshop in our store, and maybe you learn some technical skills where you can go work at like a manufacturer, to get even better salary and better benefits. And you know, there's lots of sort of routes from here.
That's great. And how nice you have a director that's willing to be that launch pad.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, Emily, thank you so very much for your time today and for your time a few months ago to taking us on that tour. It was great to see you, and thanks for all your time today.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right. See you later, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow for our last working Wednesday on job application A to Z. Bye.
Bye.